803-3771, 800-803-3771, 800-803-3771. That's 800-803-3771.
Are you tired of static? Wish you could take your favorite Virginia radio stations with you wherever you go? Then you need to discover the power of streaming. That's right. You can now easily listen to the Virginia Talk Radio Network for insightful discussions and local news.
From the VTRN News Center, I'm Bill Shafiro.
And groove to classic hits on Rewind 1039.
Baby, I know you're asking me to stay.
All from your smartphone, tablet, or computer. No more fiddling with the dial. Just download your favorite radio app. Search for Virginia Talk Radio Network or Rewind 1039, and you're ready to go. Stay connected with your community.
Good morning. This is Kimberly McBroom in the WDBJ 7 Newsroom with our Virginia Talk Radio Network news update.
And enjoy the music you love anytime, anywhere.
Every move you make.
Streaming the Virginia Talk Radio Network and Rewind 1039. It's that easy. Virginia Talk Radio Network. Rewind 1039. Now streaming.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
If you had have checked out Fast Lane, Ed Lane, or I think you retweeted it today, did you? And
Yes, I did.
and you accepted the invitation to collaborate on Instagram. My man, TJ Wilkerson. If you have done that and checked out TJ_Wilkerson8 or Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, then you would know that we are really going to be going fast today here in the Fast Lane because we go to 5:30 p.m. Virginia Tech Lady Hokies are at Syracuse. They're looking to snap their own 2-game losing streak. More on that theme in just a second. And after that, college football playoff semifinal number 1. Can Miami rep the ACC and defeat Ole Miss? Or will the SEC have hope for their first college football national champion in a couple of years, with the Big Ten having won the last 2 and being guaranteed at least one participant, or only one, because they play each other tomorrow night, VTRN Sports app, as the opponent in the championship game. So we'll get to all of that in a moment. But this is why we get to jump in to all of this in the Fast 5 at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
Prediction time. And I am not normally one for predictions, TJ. Do you have any convictions on what transpires in the big college football playoff semifinal tonight? We'll get to the rest of the games tomorrow.
I think, honestly, Miami's on a pace where they're very hard to beat. And as an ACC lover, I think Miami's going to find a way to go to the game.
So, full to get my usher on for a moment in the fast lane. Full confession, I had Miami at 16-1 to win the national championship. That was midseason. I could have doubled up on it and gotten them at like 150-1, but there was so much doubt they would make the playoff. And again, to get my usher on, I was of no faith that the ACC would be represented at all in the college football playoff because I thought JMU would get in as the second G5. That was a consolation prize. Again, 13-1 for them to make the playoffs, fully admitting that was kind of a backdoor cover. And, at 13-1, I'll be glad to take $30, turn it to $390 profit, and $420 total. So, again, no complaints here. But I have Miami at that. I am looking at taking Ole Miss, and in a weird way, normally if you're taking the underdog, you're going to take it to be a lower scoring game. That's just kind of the general rule. Underdog, lower scoring, the variance factor. You want fewer chances at the apple, so it's a closer game, and the underdog has a chance to jump in and grab a victory.
I just think Miami's defense has come shooting up at the right time. You shut down a high-powered Ohio State offense to 14 points, not to mention A&M, 3 points. And they're facing an Ole Miss team that does have a great offense. Juwan Lacey, Trinidad, the the guys that Lane Kiffin failed to take with them. I just think they're on a roll, but I think Miami is the one team that can shut that offense down.
So I agree with you, and that's why I was going to say it's really weird. If you think Ole Miss wins, I would predict more points.
Yeah,
And if Miami wins, fewer points.
I agree.
Because we've seen the Miami blueprint. They want to make it a slower, uglier, bully ball beat you up in the trenches game.
And Carson Beck has played Ole Miss before. He knows what it takes to beat them, but he knows what it takes to lose to them too, because he lost to them last year.
That's a great point as your reference there, because of course Carson Beck came to Miami from Georgia. I think Miami ultimately pulls it out, but I do lean Ole Miss to cover. Again, if I can get them at, I'm a waiting game. If I can get them at over a possession, 8.5 or even 7.5, I think I would just take them at that point. But I may even just jump on that sooner to kind of hedge my bets. And if the game lands, somewhere in the middle, all the better to keep this thing alive.
Short Drew Disney could help you out with the bet.
Yes,
I don't know if he does college football.
not as much tennis, NFL, NBA, but it's good. Have people that make up our weak spots. Paul Stone would be the guy to go with that. And again, to get my usher on, I am clearly not heavily enough into the sports betting and clearly not investing. I wouldn't even call it investing. Risking, let's call it what it is. But again, like if you're a professional, you can call it investing. If you're like us, call it a risk. Like I view the money as money I'm okay losing. And if I have a year like this where I make a marginal amount, that's fine. But you need to be responsible about that. I just always think it's worth repeating that. Meanwhile, pivoting off of that, but sticking with the theme of Las Vegas.
Number 4.
At the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this week, there is a feature that has been introduced for certain broadcast partners, which would allow people to customize their broadcast. And this is more readily available for streaming options right now, but customize the broadcast where you increase the crowd noise and where you decrease commentator volume or even eliminate it altogether. Again, to get my usher on here in the fast lanes, last year when the VTR and Sports app was not your home for the college football playoff, and therefore listening to the college football playoff semifinals and championship on the VTR and Sports app was not an option like it is this year, I had to watch the games only. And I chose the option for a couple of those broadcasts where it was the all 22 angle, and they just used the PA announcers, the crowd noise, and no commentators. And me being the nerd that I am liked it. Again, to get my usher on for a second, when my wife and I were out of town and watching one of the semifinal matchups, the quarterfinal matchups last weekend, late last week, I was watching the broadcast and I had on the all 22 view without the announcers. And my wife, it took her almost the entire first half to figure out what was going on. And my best retort of this all was, she's like, why are there no announcers? I'm like, so that I can converse with you, honey, of course.
Man, imagine that in a VR experience. Oh my gosh.
I think it'd be fantastic. There's this company out there, and they're in larger metropolitan areas, DJ. But they do a lot of the it's almost like it's IMAX. That's what it's called. It's not the same thing, but it's an IMAX concept, except instead of watching like cool nature videos, like National Geographic type stuff, which by the way is really cool on IMAX. I can't wait to introduce that to my 7-year-old boys who are all about learning, and I love it, as am I. But you can do it with sports, and it feels like you're kind of in an immersive experience elsewhere. I would love it if there was more of that. I think that's phenomenal.
Does it, but I'm not sure if the NFL or NCAA does it.
I love the concept, though, but there's some people that are upset at the idea of minimizing the broadcasters. I think it's a great idea. And if that's the case, look, again, we're radio broadcasters, so we're painting a picture. It's different from TV broadcasting. And there's some broadcasters I thoroughly enjoy, but if you do not like a set of broadcasters, and everybody's got their own personal preferences and it varies from person to person.
Romo.
Yeah, Tony Romo's probably at the top of my list. I'm not really a big Joe Tess fan. Sorry, Trey. Not really a big Gus Johnson fan. I agree with Trey from the morning warm-up. But everybody's got their personal preference, and therefore there are times where this makes sense. Meanwhile,
Number 3.
leadership change. Miami Dolphins. They have gotten rid of Mike McDaniel as their head coach. I am all for the Rooney Rule, and there's some retread candidates out there where I'm just scratching my head of why you would hire this person to be a head coach. I was never really a Cliff Kingsbury coach guy. Never did it for me at Texas Tech. Didn't really seem to do much at Arizona. I don't get the luster because after his first year, his offense seems to be figured out. That one to me. Mike McCarthy. I think we kind of know what he is.
Yeah.
You're a Cowboys fan. You might agree or disagree on this. But there are other examples where I understand why you would just say, why are we doing the Rooney Rule? Because we have our coach made up. And honestly, it may be a better option. And I could believe it if Tomlin leaves Pittsburgh and becomes a free agent this year or next year. I think he'd be at the top of people's list.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they win, it changes that. But the other one is I think the Dolphins clearly seem to be zeroing in on John Harbaugh with the Baltimore Ravens. And any other coach that's interviewed for this, I don't even know what you're doing right now.
And Ed, I'll be real quick, but you pointed out how great of an offensive coordinator day Mike McDaniel would be, and I agreed with that. If I'm Washington, I pick up Mike McDaniel.
No question.
No question.
I would. Washington. I think Dayball's the guy that they want because of his infatuation with Jaden Daniels, and I get that. If McDaniel, who I don't think's head coaching material, he never struck me as mature.
Yeah.
But there are examples of it. Now, there are minority coaching candidates that I believe deserve to be head coach. I think the biggest one is Brian Flores, who's the most obvious example. What he's done with that Minnesota defense this year and the quarterback questions, and therefore putting more pressure on the defense. I get it. He had disagreements with the brass in Miami, ironically, an African-American GM in Chris Greer. But, he is the type of candidate that if he doesn't get a hiring, that's where you sound the alarm bells. Not, we blew over everyone for John Harbaugh. I get why you would do that. Yeah. But for Brian Flores, that guy to me should be on everybody's list.
Rob Sala, too.
Robert?
I would totally still Rob from the 49ers.
The reason why I would say yes is even though he's kind of a little oomph for me, how do you put any stock into a failure with the Jets?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real here. Meanwhile, speaking of leadership changes, we get to more of that in
number 2.
NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps resigned earlier this week. To me, this screams fall guy for the NASCAR family, France family losing their lawsuit. I still think to restore full fan confidence, I would want someone other than the Jim France family making the day-to-day decisions. I think you'll get more because I would imagine the settlement creates that. But to me, Steve Phelps falling out is more of being the fall guy than actually believing that NASCAR is making serious leadership changes. And that is a topic we will get into as the season progresses. But we will get into this more in just a bit with Dan Bonner talking college basketball. But I did my TrostLaw.com fast take from the parking lot of an airport today because right now Virginia Tech and Virginia basketball feel like they're parking lot airport. Virginia Tech, 2-game losing streak in the early portion of ACC play for the men's and women's programs. You heard the men's loss, squandering the 13-point lead to Stanford last night. Feels like they're stuck in the parking lot. They're not turning around and leaving the chance to fly off on this season, but they have not walked in and gotten themselves rolling toward the gate and taking off towards a chance at March Madness. Meanwhile, Virginia, they clearly feel like they are in that direction, and it looks like it. The women with what they did the last couple of games against Clemson and Florida State, and obviously the men with how they really handled Cal last night, backing up a dominant win at NC State. So we'll get into that when we return in the Fast Lane. Dan Bonner slated to provide his perspective when we return here in the Fast Lane on the VTR and Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTR and Sports.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Volkswagen. Get ready to fall head over heels for the perfect VW SUV. One size doesn't fit all, though, and that's why Volkswagen has an SUV for everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the tech-packed Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terrybw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
We're joined by Corey Argentino from Earthright Mid-Atlantic and Earthright Roofing. Corey, blending those two together, the ability to work with people for both their roofs and solar, how does that work?
Well, it really coincides because a lot of folks needing solar panels also need a new roof. And some people just need a new roof. And with a trusted brand like Earthright, you can't go wrong doing your roofing or your solar project or both with us.
How beneficial is it as well that when consultants come to someone's house or business, they can get consultation on both solar and roofing?
This saves a lot of time. You're not having two different people come out. You got one person. They understand both. The process is less time consuming and the project moves along a lot smoother having one team, one project working together with the other team.
Corey Argentino from Earthright Mid-Atlantic and Earthright Roofing. Corey, thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
Indeed. Come by, see the showroom on Timberlake Road in Lynchburg, and learn more at earthright.com.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders, we're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us, build with experience, build with quality, build with Right Choice.
Get more on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your trusted dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for over 50 years. With more selection, more value, and more finance options. Plus, your trade is worth more. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Your search ends at the Motor Mile. Choose from over 900 quality pre-owned vehicles, plus a massive selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, plus the used car superstore. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles at one location. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got more than any other dealer in the area. The Sheeler Motor Mile delivers choices. Here's the difference. Sheeler owns the finance company and makes getting approved for credit simple and easy on the Motor Mile. Flexible financing options for every budget to get you on the road fast. Get more on the Sheeler Motor Mile with a certified friendly staff and no games, no gimmicks. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hi, this is Zach Mackey, the voice of Virginia Tech men's basketball. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
So it feels like, and our observations are kind of, I wouldn't say they're going in opposite directions, and I wouldn't even go so far as to say that the season is doomed for the Virginia Tech Hokies with their loss last night. I mean, that is way too premature. But the TroastLaw.com fast take that I did from the airport today, again, it kind of hit me there. You know, these things happen just in random times where, you know, it feels like Virginia Tech is in the parking lot. Like they can get out and get working toward their goal of March Madness. They're not doomed. They're not going in the wrong direction, but they're just kind of stagnant. Whereas Virginia, they clearly look like, especially the last couple of games, and even before that, this was a 2-loss team, one of them in triple overtime to open up conference play at Virginia Tech. They look much more like a team where you go, all right, this team is really giving me the confidence as conference play gets going that they can be a threat toward the upper half and therefore solidified in the NCAA tournament picture. Somebody who has seen the Hoos, seen the Hokies, and even seen the Liberty Flames, Dan Bonner, basketball analyst, does some work for the ACC Network and ESPN, CBS Sports Network. He's done it with Westwood One, as you've heard before previously on the VTR and Sports app. Dan, first of all, we hope and pray that you're well. Happy New Year to you and yours. Is that a reasonable analogy that right now, at the start of conference play, Tech and Virginia both pulled up to the airport, and Virginia has not turned around and left and gotten stuck in traffic, but they don't look like they've gotten out and headed toward the gate either, the way the Virginia Cavaliers have?
Well, it's January 8th, and so we've got an awful lot of basketball left to be played. So I don't know about parking lots and airports or anything like that, but I just think that both of those teams, Virginia and Virginia Tech, did pretty much what they needed to do in the non-conference portion of the season. And that's something that neither team has done really well, particularly not last year, that by the time conference play started, they were dead in the water. They weren't going to the airport. They were out in the river and they were sinking. In fact, they were already at the bottom of the river. So, and this year, that's not the case. This year, they both did what they needed to do in the non-conference portion of play. And now they just have to keep it going during conference play. And as I saw last night in that Stanford-Virginia Tech game, every single game in this conference is going to be a knockdown, drag-out affair. And, I don't think the teams who have done what they needed to do in the non-conference portion of play are going to hurt themselves by losing games to other good teams in the conference as long as they don't make a habit of it.
So we'll then pivot off of that because they just won at Virginia Tech, erasing a 13-point second-half deficit and getting a big three-pointer with just a couple of ticks left on that Castle Coliseum clock. And then they go to Charlottesville, where I'll be covering for VTR in Sports this coming Saturday. Stanford, do we need to rethink them as maybe being in that class of teams that deserves NCAA tournament? Again, I know it's early, but when people are mapping out who's a threat to really be contended with in the ACC, we knew about your Dukes, your Carolinas, your Louisvilles. Virginia's played their way into that. Did Stanford make a statement last night that they too should be given consideration?
I think, nobody's talking about Stanford, and I will defer to all the people who make this bracket their lives, guys like Joe Lenardi, and they're not talking about Stanford. But the NCAA has that quad system that drives everybody crazy. And at this point in the year, and I stress at this point in the year, it's January 8th, Stanford has 3 quad 1 wins. And the only team in the ACC that has more is Duke, and they have 4. So I think that Stanford, they're in a situation where they've put themselves in a pretty good position, and now can they produce? And I think the key for Stanford is, and for anybody else in the conference, really, they're going to play 18 games. Number one, can you win all or most of your games at home? And number two, if you're going to lose games either at home or on the road, you cannot lose them to the teams whose nets are not very good. I don't think whether you're at home or on the road, you can lose a game to Pitt. You can lose a game to Florida State. You can lose a game to Georgia Tech. I just don't think you can do that. And not because I don't think those teams are not capable of beating the other teams. They are. But according to the rating system, if you lose to one of those teams, you really, really hurt yourself.
That's a great point about how to really view losses. What does this also say? Dan Bonner, by the way, with us, basketball analyst for ESPN and ACC Network, does some work with Westwood One and CBS Sports Network as well. Dan, what does it say about the ACC that you cycled out and you hit on those 3 teams that are struggling, but that the rest of this conference seems to be much stronger than it's been in prior years, notably last year?
No, there isn't any question. There isn't any question, and the ACC publishes statistics which prove that. They won 132 games against other schools in the non-conference portion of the schedule last year. They won 176 this year. They beat 20 other teams from power conferences last year. They've beaten 38 this year. So they're much, much better. They've got 11 teams in the net top 75, which is the most of any conference. So according to the rating system, they're much better. And when you watch them play, you can see they're all much better. And so that means that the competition is going to be very intense. That means that anybody can beat anybody else. And as long as you don't go on some 12-game losing streak, I think most of the conference teams have positioned themselves very well for the NCAA tournament. Now, it depends on what other teams from other conferences do. But we had SEC teams last year get in the tournament, the NCAA tournament, with losing conference records. And I could see that maybe happening this year, depending upon who you lose to. Like I say, you can't lose to Florida State. You can't lose to Georgia Tech. You can't lose to Pitt. You can't lose to Boston College. But otherwise, you're playing teams that I don't think losing to them hurts you very much, particularly if you lose to them on the road.
We've touched on those teams right now. How much of your evaluation of Virginia Tech centers on the fact that they are clearly a different team? And I know he played last night, but not fully. They're a totally different team when Toby Lawal is in the lineup and also when Johnson is in and he's been out too.
Well, and that's, of course, you have to deal with that. Everybody has injuries. And even though you hear some, flapdoodle from the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee about how they might consider injuries, they don't. Because the one word you get is, well, we don't know whether you'd have won those games if you had those players. And so you just have to deal with that. And the problem for Virginia Tech is, particularly with Lawal, they were 6-0 with him. Of course, they weren't playing a very high level of competition, but then he's out for 9 games. And everybody understands how you have to make adjustments when your star goes out, but very few people understand how hard it can be sometimes to make the adjustments when your star comes back. And so Virginia Tech is going to have to go through that process. And last night they let one slip away because, they were ahead by 13 with 6 minutes left in the game. They let that one slip away, but that's going to happen. You're playing against other really good teams with really good players. And I'm telling you that a Corey kid from Stanford, you can tell me all you want about these other fabulous freshmen, but I would put him right up there with them.
Dan Bonner with us here in the Fast Lane, veteran basketball analyst. He has seen the Hokies and the Who's. We touched on Virginia Tech. What about UVA? They have won with Jakari White out the last couple of weeks. How much of that is the bench? How much of this is Ryan Odom finding a lot of pieces that mesh well together? And it's great to have Jakari, but he seems like he's been able to really maintain the depth of talent that they can have and have shown the early portion of the year.
They did a great job in the offseason in the transfer portal recruiting quality depth, and that's what they were looking for. And so they achieved that. But, Ryan Odom, as good a coach as he is, he can't play. He can't make a shot. He can't steal the ball. And so his players right at the moment, and again, there's so many new ones, it takes some time to get this together. And they're going to have their ups and downs. What we've seen from them so far is when they shoot the ball well, they are unbelievably formidable. And they've had some problems with rebounding. They've struggled, particularly when they can't score. That game against Virginia Tech, they scored 85 points, but they only scored 55 points in the first 40 minutes. And generally, you're not going to get an extra 15 minutes to score 30 more points. So I think that Virginia, if their offense is gelling, that helps their defense, and they can be a very good team. And so they're not going to waltz through the ACC like with only one loss. They're not going to finish 17-1, but I think they're going to be very competitive. And unless they have a disaster, I think they've positioned themselves very well. They could be the second best team in the ACC. It just depends on, a number of different things.
It does. There are a lot of factors that go into that. We'll pivot off of the ACC with Dan Bonner because you've also seen the Liberty Flames this season. Their 5-game winning streak right now. How impressive is it that they've done that against different styles, including 3 different styles to start 3-0 in Conference USA play?
That's very impressive. I cannot tell you how impressed I was with Liberty because Conference USA is an extremely good league. It's an extremely tough league to play in, even if the other teams weren't good, because the travel schedule is just unbelievably hard. They got to go to Texas to play. They got to go. How easy is it to get from Lynchburg to like El Paso? So it's very difficult. They have a difficult travel schedule, but they play such a fun brand of basketball. And eventually they may run into somebody whose size is going to give them a problem, but they make up for that. They move the ball well. They play so well together. Decker is having a great year shooting the ball. Cleveland is like a really different kind of player with how well he can pass and rebound. And I was just really entertained by being able to see them play against the Kennesaw team that's really, really good. But this whole time we've spent talking about Virginia and Virginia Tech and the other teams in the ACC about what is their path to the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately for Liberty and everybody else in Conference USA, there's only one path. They got to win the tournament. They got to win the Conference USA tournament. And Liberty is certainly capable of doing that, but, that puts an awful lot on the line. You can have a bad game against a team like Kennesaw, and you can be out in that tournament, and you won't be going to the NCAA.
Great points from Dan Bonner. We're appreciative that you're generous enough to make those for us today here in the Fast Lane. Dan, thank you for your time, and we look forward and would love to catch up again as the basketball season takes its turns.
Well, never a problem for me. Thanks very much for asking me.
Dan Bonner with us to wrap up the Fast Lane. Now on to Virginia Tech Lady Hokies basketball.
The following is a play-fly presentation of the Virginia Tech Sports Network. It's game day for Virginia Tech women's basketball.
Finds an open Wenzel, jumps for 3, puts Virginia Tech in front. It's good. Wenzel, massive shot. Hokies lead. Baker catch and shoot 3 for the lead. It's down. Paris Baker hits her 7th 3 of the game.
The Virginia Tech Hokies are on the air. Today's broadcast is sponsored by CMG Leasing. Looking for the best apartments near Virginia Tech? Go to cmgleasing.com to explore all they have to offer and secure your housing today. Virginia Farm Bureau Insurance. Local makes a difference. For auto, for home, for farm, for life. Ford. Drive home a new Ford F-150 today from your Southern Virginia Ford dealer. And by Carilion Clinic. When the Hokies need health care, they turn to Carilion Clinic. Virginia Tech and Carilion Clinic, a winning team.
2-on-2 fast break, suffering the whole way, layup, good. Castle erupts, suffering with the layup. She's got a career-high 14. Nelson downhill, right block through contact, layup up and in. Mackenzie Nelson taking over.
50 seasons of Virginia Tech women's basketball. More iconic moments to come.
Believe it, Hokie Nation! Virginia Tech has punched its first ever ticket to the Final Four.
We're getting you set for today's game with our Tech Shoot-Around. 30 minutes of pregame coverage is straight ahead. Now, for the call of today's game, here is the voice of Virginia Tech women's basketball, Evan Hughes.
From the JMA Wireless Dome in Syracuse, we say hello, Tech fans, and welcome to upstate New York for ACC women's basketball. Tonight, Virginia Tech tries to snap a 2-game skid and pick up its second conference road victory of the year as they visit a much-improved NCAA tournament hopeful squad in the Syracuse Orange. It is game number 17 of the 2025-26 Virginia Tech women's basketball season. With that, I tell you to turn your radio dials and speakers up, as it gives me great pride and joy to say the Virginia Tech Hokies are on the air across the Virginia Tech Sports Network on this Thursday night. 20th all-time meeting between Syracuse and Virginia Tech, former Big East foes now in the ACC. The Hokies 11-5 on the year, 1-3 in league play, and Syracuse 13-2, 3-1 in the ACC. Welcome in courtside inside the dome. Evan Hughes on hand. Thanks so much for joining us wherever, however you may be tuning in, whether it's locally in Southwest Virginia on 100.7 FM. We welcome in our listeners on VTRN Sports Lynchburg 93.3 FM, the free Hokie Sports mobile app, or tonight also available on the SiriusXM mobile app. Wherever, however you're listening, we're thrilled you did so. One programming note we do want to remind you of: every Thursday in which Tech Talk Live airs at the same time as women's basketball, Tech Talk Live will be on 105.3 The Bear, women's basketball on 100.7, and then on Sundays in the Megan Duffy Show airings, those will also be on 105.3 The Bear. Our Tech Shoot-Around pregame coverage is underway, and we've got a lot to get to until tip-off comes your way at exactly 6:02. How Virginia Tech can pick up its first win in 18 days tonight. Why Syracuse might be the most improved team in the ACC, plus your iconic moment in Virginia Tech women's basketball history, your forward keys to a Hokie victory, Carilion Clinic injury report, and a little bit later, our pregame conversation with the second-year head coach of the Hokies, Megan Duffy. Well, I mentioned the Hokies, 11-5 on the year, 1-3 in the ACC, a net ranking of 53. We always like to try and keep you up to date on ESPN bracketology. Yes, it's January 8th. It's early, but the Hokies currently are on the outside looking in. And, of course, Tech coming off of that 85-60 loss to then 13th-ranked Louisville on Sunday. Tonight, the Hokies try to avoid a 3-game losing skid for the first time in 5 years. You have to go back to 2020, the last time it happened. But twice last year, Virginia Tech lost 2 straight. And this year, JMU, BYU consecutive losses, they always bounce back in that third game with a win. This year with that victory coming over Oregon State in the Virgin Islands. I think today, early on for this Tech team, while it is important, yes, to understand the scout, and yes, you're going to have to execute that to win, but at the same time, it's also about getting back to what you do well. And Virginia Tech has shown this year in the 11 wins, defending as a team and being one of the top teams in the ACC in forcing turnovers or sharing the basketball. Tech is top 50th nationally in assists per game at a little under 17. Hokies had just 10 assists on Sunday. Virginia Tech 11-1 on the year when they have more assists than the opponents. Another thing this Tech team does well, I know the numbers have not shown it per se, but you know from last year, Carly Wenzel, Karis Baker, and others on this Tech team can really
Thursday in the Fast Lane, we discussed how the Virginia Cavaliers and Virginia Tech Hokies are at different spots in the airport as they try to take off in ACC basketball play. Virginia Tech, they are stuck in the parking lot, not leaving in the wrong direction, but not close to takeoff. Meanwhile, the Virginia Cavaliers, they have left their car and are heading toward check-in. With your Thursday in the Fast Lane, we discussed how the Virginia Cavaliers and Virginia Tech Hokies are at different spots in the early going of ACC play. Virginia taking off. The Hoos poised for takeoff toward the top of the ACC. Virginia Tech, more like stuck in the parking lot. Hear more where you discuss. Listen back, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts. Drop your thoughts. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, because we'll get to that Friday in the Fast Lane. Plus, preview the NFL action with Ryan Leaf. The Fast Lane, 5 to 5:30 p.m. So join us 5 to 6 p.m. VTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM. Ask your smart speaker, open VTR in Sports. Thursday in the Fast Lane, we discussed how the Virginia Cavaliers and Virginia Tech Hokies are at different junctures early in ACC play. If you want to use the airport analogy, the Hokies are stuck in the parking lot, while the Wahoos have left and are heading toward the gate, taking off toward the top of the ACC. Hear more, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, where you listen to podcasts. Agree or disagree, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and join us Friday in the Fast Lane as we recap that with fan feedback. The Fast Lane, 5 to 6 p.m., VTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM. Thursday in the Fast Lane, ACC. Thursday in the Fast Lane, veteran college football. Thursday in the Fast Lane, veteran college basketball broadcaster Dan Bonner lent his perspective on the ACC in the early portion of conference play. The Cavaliers. Thursday in the Fast Lane, veteran college basketball broadcaster Dan Bonner lent his perspective on the Wahoos and the Hokies in the early going of ACC play, plus has high praise for the Liberty Flames in what's set to be a challenging Conference USA slate. Hear it all, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, where you listen to podcasts. Agree or disagree, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and join us Friday. Ryan Leaf, Westwood One NFL analyst, talks NFL playoffs. The Fast Lane, 5 to 6 p.m., VTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM. Good morning. With your TrostLaw.com fast take on Rewind 1039, Lynchburg's Classic Hits, I'm Ed Lane. Right now, if you were to use an airport analogy, the Virginia Tech Hokies and Virginia Cavaliers are at different spots in the airport if you're trying to summarize the start of ACC basketball play for both the men and women's teams. For both the Lady Hokies and the men's basketball team at Virginia Tech, they're stuck in the parking lot. They have not quite gotten out and approached the They haven't yet headed for the airport so they can start to take off in conference play, but they're also not going in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, the Virginia Cavaliers, they are on their way toward the top of the ACC men's basketball standings and in an upward trajectory for the Lady Hoos too. Now, of course, keep this all. Good morning with your TrostLaw.com fast take on Rewind 1039 Lynchburg's Classic Hits. I'm Ed Lane. A little airport analogy for the start of conference play for Virginia Tech and UVA, both in men's and women's basketball, because they are similar. The Lady Hokies and Virginia Tech's men's team are stuck in the parking lot of the airport. They're not going in the wrong direction away from takeoff, but they also haven't gotten out and taken the necessary steps as their two-game losing streaks would indicate. As their sluggish starts to conference play would indicate. In taking the necessary steps as their sluggish starts to conference play would indicate. Meanwhile, the Virginia Cavaliers have not boarded the plane yet for the men's or Lady Wahoos. Meanwhile, the Virginia men's and Lady Wahoos teams have not boarded the airplanes yet, but both of them have shown signs that they are at least in the airport getting ready to take off in conference play. Meanwhile, the Lady Hoos and Ryan Odom's Virginia men's team have not taken off, but they are taking steps toward the airport itself. Good in the early going of conference play. Good morning with your TrostLaw.com fast take on Rewind 1039 Lynchburg's Classic Hits. I'm Ed Lane. If you're looking at the ACC basketball season toward the regular season and conference tournament champions, then getting on the airplane and taking off is the ultimate destination. And right now, the Virginia Cavaliers and the Virginia Tech Hokies, men's and women's teams, are both in the early stages of conference play, but they are at different spots on their journey. They're both at the airport and show the potential of being able to get toward the taxi and ultimately onto the airplane, of being a conference tournament caliber team and an NCAA tournament one as well. But right now, Virginia Tech feels more like they are stuck in the parking lot for men's and women's basketball, needing to get out and start taking those steps. Whereas Virginia, they are at least heading toward the airport. With your TrostLaw.com fast take on Rewind 10. Good morning. With your TrostLaw.com fast take on Rewind 1039 Lynchburg's Classic Hits, I'm Ed Lane. A little airport analogy for the Virginia Tech and Virginia Cavalier basketball programs as we get ready for in the early portion of conference play. For Virginia Tech, it feels like they are in the parking lot at the airport. They've made their way there, and there's clearly an obvious path toward them getting on the plane of being a good ACC men's or women's basketball team and having a spot in the NCAA tournament. But it feels like they're kind of stuck and haven't yet gotten out. Meanwhile, the Virginia Cavaliers look like a program for women's and especially men's basketball where they are clearly approaching the airport and things are going in the right direction to where they can ultimately get on the plane of being one of the better ACC basketball programs and having a spot in March Madness. Sure, it's early in the journey, but it's never too early to give initial assessments. With your TrostLaw.com fast take on Rewind 1039 Lynchburg's Classic Hits, I'm Ed Lane. Join us for the Fast Lane, 5 to 6 p.m., BTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM. Thank you for your time. Dan Bonner with us to wrap up the Fast Lane. Now on to Virginia Tech Lady Hokies basketball.
Mark Dalton here with Terry. Mark Dalton here.
Wherever you go.
Syracuse are looking to snap their own 2-game losing
Open.
All from
Good morning.
streaming.
me. But if hoax, but madness hoax, but now Virginia Tech, women and men. It's not Virginia basketball, right? Metaphor and compare and contrast for Virginia Tech. Why is Classic Hits. I'm Ed Lane. Give initial assessments with your tech and Good morning. With your TroSwallow.com Fast Take on Rewind 1039 Lynchburg's Classic Hits, I'm Ed Lane. A little airport analogy for the Virginia Tech and Virginia Cavalier basketball programs in the early portion of conference play. For Virginia Tech, it feels like they are in the parking lot at the airport. They've made their way there, and there's clearly an obvious path toward them getting on the plane of being a good ACC men's or women's basketball team and having a spot in the NCAA tournament. But it feels like they're kind of stuck and haven't yet gotten out. Meanwhile, the Virginia Cavaliers look like a program for women's and especially men's basketball where they are clearly approaching the airport and things are going in the right direction to where they could ultimately get on the plane of being one of the better ACC basketball programs and having a spot in March Madness. Sure, it's early in the journey, but it's never too early to give initial assessments. With your TroSwallow.com Fast Take on Rewind 1039 Lynchburg's Classic Hits, I'm Ed Lane. Join us for the Fast Lane, 5 to 6 p.m., BTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM. So why is this TroSwallow.com Fast Take coming your way from an airport parking lot? It's because it's a perfect metaphor and compare and contrast for Virginia Tech basketball and Virginia basketball. Right now, Virginia Tech, women and men, it's not catastrophic toward their March Madness hopes, but it feels like they're stuck in the parking lot. They haven't really gotten going in ACC play. Meanwhile, for the Virginia Cavalier women and especially the men, they are much closer to take off. Thursday in the Fast Lane, we discussed how the Virginia Cavaliers and Virginia Tech Hokies are at different junctures early in ACC play. If you want to use the airport analogy, the Hokies are stuck in the parking lot, while the Wahoos have left and are heading toward the gate, taking off toward the top of the ACC. Hear more Fast Lane Ed Lane reviews in the podcasts. Agree or disagree? Fast Lane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and join us Friday in the Fast Lane as we recap that with fan feedback. The Fast Lane, 5 to 6 p.m., BTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM. Thursday in the Fast Lane, Veteran college basketball broadcaster Dan Bonner lent his perspective on the Wahoos and the Hokies in the early going of ACC play. Plus, has high praise for the Liberty Flames and what's set to be a challenging Conference USA slate. Hear it all, Fastlane Ed Lane, where you listen to podcasts. Agree or disagree, Fastlane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And join us Friday. Ryan Lee, Westwood One NFL analyst, talks NFL playoffs. The Fastlane, 5 to 6 p.m., VTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM.